Interpreting cross-cultural digital ethnography, the need to consider local and religious content. This is a chapter that was contributed by Jim Harries to the book entitled Practices, Challenges and Prospects of Digital Ethnography as a Multidisciplinary Method. This book was published in 2022. Here's my introduction. My chapter considers implications of and legitimacy of the use of digital ethnography for intercultural research. These days, researchers may choose digital ethnography in preference to alternatives such as live participant observation and interaction with people using their own indigenous languages. Digital ethnography appears to cut out value-loaded subjective mediation. It can reduce the costs and inconveniences of travel or of negotiating unfamiliar languages and cultures. It can make the research process more transparent. At the same time, going digital is already flanked with difficult to navigate ethical dilemmas. Misuse of digital ethnography interculturally can easily result in an immoral undermining of the sensibilities and practices of many of the globe's peoples. Specifically, ways in which these can be undermined that are considered here include the use of English as a supposed globally understood language. It includes neglect of the local context. It includes refusal to acknowledge the role of religion in preference for Western secularism, all with the result that traditional ways of life can be concealed. This chapter finds that all too often and all too easily digital ethnography does not discover truth but creates its own truth. Its failure to grasp what is happening on the ground results in presuppositions of similarity with what is familiar to the researcher and the researcher's community. In other words, there is pretentiously by the West made to appear to be the same as here in the course of digital ethnography. Conclusion then, in an age in which the secular West has become globally dominant in terms of language and culture, whereby formally correct information is held in English, this has resulted in an apparent blanket covering of secularism around the globe. In other words, the foreign there is pretentiously by the West made to appear to be the same as here. The formal prominence of English in powerful circles globally leaves people seeking to follow agendas that are not mainstream with two alternatives: either the prospect of being ignored or to implicitly change the categories of English they use. A case study looking at the work of data above in this chapter illustrates how an activity that is accepted in formal circles, i.e. research, can be transformed into a community building exercise. The case study does not seem to consider how such transformation undermines presumed benefits arising from the research concerned. Thus, indigenously guided research can be said to be not research at all, given technically correct meanings of the term research extant in native speaker English. In brief, indigenous people should carry out research on themselves and others using their own languages. Translation of the outcome of their research is then another issue. Translation into English should be engaged by a native English speaker who has become familiar with the language and culture, including religious aspects of it, of the people who have engaged their research and who have been researched. So this chapter has found that all too often and all too easily, intercultural digital ethnography does not discover truth, but it creates its own truth. How? Through failing to grasp what is happening on the ground. So, presupposing similarity with what is familiar. Digital ethnography can easily become a method of cutting thick, culturally complex human interaction from research. For more on thick descriptions, see Geertz. Geertz suggests cultural analysis is, or should be, guessing at meanings, assessing the guesses, and drawing explanatory conclusions as the alternative to research practice, arguably including digital ethnography that obscures a good deal more than it reveals. Intercultural use of digital ethnography may be used to replace traditional research with processes that can be guided using a computer from one's office, avoiding getting one's feet dirty or physical discomfort, vulnerability, even anger, anxiety. Particularly, should it be used interculturally, it can result in researchers failing to perceive contexts that may be vital to making results meaningful. The likelihood is that once digital ethnography becomes mainstream within the West, it will be hard to prevent digital ethnography from being used interculturally to peek into the lives of non-Westernized people without an in-depth understanding about them with which to interpret the outcome of such peeking. Because, due to various politically correct taboos, particularly anti-racism, use of a methodology like digital ethnography for fellow Westerners while refusing to use it, say, for African people would be considered racist, we could daringly conclude the practice of digital ethnography to be immoral.